For 10 years, I let my family believe I was broke. I wore thrift store clothes, lived in a tiny apartment, and listened to them mock me behind my back. But when they finally discovered the truth, oh, the begging was so satisfying. This is the story of the greatest revenge I ever pulled, and why I'd do it all over again. They waited until dessert to destroy me. I should have known something was wrong when Mother didn't complain about the caterers. Not once. No comments about the canapes being too salty or the champagne insufficiently chilled. She just sat there in her custom Carolina Herrera, picking at her lobster salad with the same disinterest she showed everything except stock portfolios and gossip about the Rockefellers. "Olivia," Father said, dabbing his mouth with a monogrammed linen napkin, "we need to talk about your future." I remember the way the crystal chandelier cast prismatic shadows across the dining table. How my brother Daniel kept smirking into his wine glass. The way my stomach dropped before I even heard the words. "We're restructuring the family trusts," Father continued in that calm boardroom voice I'd heard him use before firing executives. "Effective immediately, your allowance is terminated." The file folder slid across the polished mahogany with terrifying finality. Inside, a single check for $10,000 and a list of starter apartments in neighborhoods no Sinclair would be caught dead in. I stared at the numbers, the zeros so few compared to what I'd grown up with. This is a joke. "Consider it motivation," Mother said, examining her manicure. "You've been coasting on the family name for too long." Daniel finally looked up, his Rolex glinting as he reached for more wine. "Don't worry, little sister. I hear Starbucks has great benefits." The walls of our Fifth Avenue penthouse seemed to press closer, all those family portraits watching judgmentally. Me at 6 in a miniature fur coat, at 12 on a private ski slope, at 16 debuting at the Met Gala. Every moment a performance for their high society audience. "You're doing this now? On my birthday?" My voice cracked like it hadn't since I was 13 and they'd missed my middle school play. Father's sigh was the same one he used when explaining tax loopholes to Democrats. 18 means adulthood, Olivia. The real world doesn't care about birthdays." I looked to Mother for any flicker of hesitation. Nothing. Just the icy detachment that made her the terror of charity boards from here to Palm Beach. Then I noticed the paperwork beneath the check. A legal document with so many whereas clauses it made my eyes water. The gist. In exchange for this pathetic payout, I'd forfeit all future claims to Sinclair Holdings. Daniel was practically vibrating with glee. "Going to sign, Liv? Or should we call security to help you pack?" That's when I saw it. The tiny initials at the bottom of each page. DS. My brother had helped draft this. The grandfather clock in the hall ticked loudly through the silence. Somewhere below us, New York glittered, unaware that Olivia Sinclair was being erased from her own life. I picked up the pen. And that's when I made my first $1 million decision. I walked out, left the check, left the contract, left them all gaping as the elevator doors closed on my childhood. The doorman's pitying look as I exited onto Fifth Avenue with nothing but my Birkin and maxed out Amex burned worse than the August sun. But beneath the humiliation, something new pulsed through my veins. Because what my family didn't know, that anonymous Shopify store they mocked me for running instead of doing debutante events, it had just cleared 6 figures. And I was just getting started. I learned 3 things that first year on my own. $10,000 disappears faster than Dom Perignon at a hedge fund party. No one looks twice at a girl in thrift store clothes. Revenge tastes best when served ice cold. I could have cashed their check. Could have played the dutiful daughter begging for scraps. Instead, I let my Amex get declined at Bergdorf's just so the salesgirls who used to fawn over me could whisper behind my back. Watched with secret satisfaction as my name disappeared from the society pages, replaced by speculation about poor Olivia's breakdown. The apartment I rented in Bushwick would have given my mother hives. 400 square feet with a shower in the kitchen and a view of the L train. Perfect. I documented every cracked tile and peeling paint spot on Instagram. Hashtag number struggling artist life. My followers ate it up. All those trust fund babies who'd never missed a meal sighing over my authenticity. Meanwhile, in a WeWork 3 blocks away under the name Aria Bennett, I was quietly building an empire. The Shopify store had been a fluke at first. Vintage band tees I'd screen printed as a joke for friends. Then a Kardashian wore one. Then Rihanna. By the time my parents cut me off, Velvet and Oak was doing $80,000 a month. Not enough to buy back my childhood home, but enough to fund the greatest performance of my life. I became a ghost in my own family. Showed up to Christmas in last season's Zara with a cheap bottle of wine. Listened to Daniel brag about his new Tesla while I picked at store-bought cookies. Let them all believe I was one missed paycheck away from waiting tables. "You really should let me get you an interview at the firm," Daniel said at Thanksgiving year 3, mouthful of organic turkey. "The mailroom pays $18 an hour now." "Thanks," I murmured, stirring my boxed wine with a plastic fork. "I'll think about it." That night, I went home and approved the $2 million expansion into Asian markets. The looks were the best part. The barely concealed smirks when I mentioned freelance writing gigs. The way my mother's friends would pat my hand and say, "You'll land on your feet," while mentally calculating how far I'd fallen. Year 5, I bought my first penthouse. Not in New York. That would have been too risky. A sleek glass box in Miami under an LLC, where I'd spend one weekend a month floating in the infinity pool, sipping the same vintage champagne my father cellared, laughing at the emails from my concerned relatives. "You look tired," Mother said at my cousin's wedding, eyeing my synthetic silk dress. "Are you eating enough?" I made sure my hands shook slightly as I reached for a past hors d'oeuvre. "The freelance market is tough right now." That afternoon, Velvet and Oak hit $10 million in annual revenue. By year 7, I stopped getting invited to family events. Just the occasional pity text from Aunt Lydia asking if I needed help with rent. I'd respond hours later with carefully crafted humility. "Things are tight, but I'm managing." Meanwhile, in Switzerland, a discrete numbered account grew fatter every quarter. The final test came on my 25th birthday. Daniel tracked me down at my shitty studio, actually a meticulously staged set I kept for family visits. He came bearing gifts, a Starbucks gift card, and a job offer to be his executive assistant. "I know it's not much," he said, not bothering to hide his appraisal of my IKEA furniture. "But it's health insurance, a 401k. I let a single tear fall as I fake-signed his paperwork. "This means everything to me." The next morning, I closed on a Tribeca loft under another shell company. That night, as I soaked in my new soaking tub overlooking the Hudson, I finally allowed myself to admit the truth. This wasn't about the money anymore. It was about the look I knew would one day flash across their faces when they realized exactly how badly they'd underestimated me. And that moment was coming sooner than they thought. I almost didn't go to the Children's Hospital benefit. My assistant had RSVP'd for Aria Bennett months ago, back when I thought I'd be in Bali that week. But when my flight got canceled, I figured why not? It's not like anyone there would recognize me. I should have remembered that in New York society, the universe loves a good punchline. The Waldorf Ballroom glittered with the kind of people who owned yachts but not their own grocery lists. I'd chosen my disguise carefully. A rented Zac Posen gown, hair darkened to chestnut, contacts turning my famous Sinclair blue eyes to an unremarkable hazel. Just another anonymous millionaire in a sea of them. Then I smelled her perfume. Chanel No. 5 mixed with cold calculation. Mother stood 10 feet away, holding court near the ice sculpture. Same razor-sharp bob, same diamond tennis bracelet she'd worn to every society event since 1998. My throat closed like I was 16 again, about to be scolded for slouching. I turned too quickly, sloshing champagne onto my clutch. That's when I bumped into him. "Ms. Bennett, what a surprise." Marcus Ellington, CEO of Lux Holdings and my biggest wholesale client, beamed down at me. His voice carried like a cannon shot in the suddenly quiet corner of the room. "Your spring collection is flying off the shelves," he boomed, gripping my elbow. When you said you were expanding to Asia, I didn't realize you meant quadrupling revenue. The champagne flute slipped from my fingers. Because over Marcus's shoulder, I saw my father's head snap up like a bloodhound catching a scent. Those shark eyes of his, the same ones that could reduce Fortune 500 CEOs to stuttering messes, locked onto mine. For one suspended second, the entire ballroom held its breath. Then Mother's gasp shattered the moment. Olivia? The way she said my name, like an accusation, like a betrayal, sent 18 years of pent-up rage boiling through my veins. I could have denied it, could have played dumb. But the look on Daniel's face as he finally put it together? Priceless. I let my posture shift, shoulders rolling back into the debutante stance Mother had drilled into me. Hello, Mother. My voice carried perfectly in the sudden silence. Fancy meeting you here? Marcus looked between us, confused. You two know each other? Unfortunately, I said sweetly, removing my contacts to reveal the Sinclair blue eyes the society pages used to rave about. The gasps were better than I'd imagined. Father actually staggered back a step. Velvet and oak is yours? Daniel's face went through an entire evolution. Confusion, disbelief, dawning horror as he did the math on what a 40% stake in my company was worth. You've been playing us this whole time? I plucked a fresh champagne flute from a passing waiter's tray. Oh, Daniel, I sighed, sipping slowly. Did you really think I'd spend a decade crying over your mailroom job offer? The whispers exploded around us like fireworks. I caught snippets. That's Olivia Sinclair? Velvet and oak is worth how much? I thought she was homeless. Mother reached for me, her manicured claws trembling. Darling, Save it. I stepped back, letting my diamond bracelet, the one piece of real jewelry I'd worn tonight, catch the light. You made your position perfectly clear 10 years ago. Then I turned on my heel and walked out the way I'd left their penthouse, head high, leaving devastation in my wake. But this time, I made sure the whole world was watching. My phone started blowing up before my Uber even reached the Brooklyn Bridge. First came the texts, dozens of them, pinging in rapid succession like a digital hailstorm. Olivia, we need to talk. Father. Darling, call me immediately. Mother. What the actual fuck, Liv? Daniel. Then the voicemails. Mother's clipped, frantic tone. Father's gruff attempt at warmth. Daniel's barely contained rage. All variations of the same theme. How could you? I silenced my phone and watched Manhattan's skyline blur past the window. 10 years of invisibility, erased in one spectacular explosion. They showed up at my Bushwick apartment the next morning, the one I'd kept as a stage prop for this exact moment. I made them wait outside for 15 minutes while I changed into my rattiest sweatpants and smeared yesterday's mascara under my eyes. Mother actually recoiled when I opened the door. You live here? The disgust in her voice was almost comforting in its predictability. Father cleared his throat, already sweating in his Brioni suit. Olivia, we come to gloat, I interrupted, popping a bubble of gum. Or just to confirm I'm still a disappointment. Daniel pushed past them, his Ferragamo loafers sticking slightly to my purposely sticky floor. Cut the bullshit. You're Aria Bennett? The Aria Bennett? I shrugged, watching his face twist as he did the math. Velvet and Oak's valuation had been all over Bloomberg that morning. Mother's manicured fingers fluttered to her throat. All this time, we thought that I was failing. I finished for her. Yeah, that was sort of the point. I let them stew for 3 excruciating days before inviting them to my real home. A penthouse in the new Herzog and de Meuron tower that even Father hadn't been able to get into. The elevator doors opened directly into my living room, revealing floor-to-ceiling views of the Statue of Liberty. Mother gasped. Daniel paled. Father's jaw actually dropped. This Father trailed off, running a hand over my Eames chair. This is yours? All of it. I poured myself a glass of 1982 Lafite, the same vintage he kept locked in his cellar. Funny how things work out, isn't it? Mother broke first. Darling, you must understand. We only cut you off because we wanted you to thrive. Her tears were perfectly timed. It was tough love. Father nodded vigorously. We knew you had potential. We were testing you. Daniel stayed uncharacteristically quiet, eyes darting between my Picasso sketch and the Wall Street Journal on my coffee table, the one featuring my latest acquisition. I let them ramble. Let them spin increasingly elaborate excuses. Waited until they'd talked themselves into a corner before dropping my bomb. You know what's hilarious? I swirled my wine. Sinclair Holdings is failing, isn't it? The silence was deafening. Father's face went ashen. How did you— I bought your debt last month. I set down my glass with a sharp clink. Through a shell company, of course. Daniel shot to his feet. You what? Relax. I smiled sweetly. I got it for pennies on the dollar. Seems the banks don't have much faith in your leadership. Mother actually clutched the pearls I'd bought her for her 50th birthday, the last gift I'd ever given her before the disowning. Olivia, please. Here's what's going to happen. I stood, smoothing my Altazara dress. You're going to leave. You're going to think very carefully about the last decade. And when you're ready to apologize, really apologize, you can find me at the office. I pressed the elevator button. Which one? Father croaked. I waited until the doors began to close before answering. The one with my name on the building. The Sinclair Holdings headquarters hadn't changed in 10 years. Same mahogany paneling, same pretentious oil portraits of my ancestors, same lingering scent of Father's Cuban cigars. The only difference? Today, the boardroom chairs all swiveled toward me as I entered. Ms. Bennett. The CFO, a man who'd once patted my head and called me kiddo, stood so quickly he knocked over his coffee. We weren't expecting— I own 51% of this company. I dropped the acquisition papers on the conference table with a satisfying thud. Sit down, Richard. Father stormed in 5 minutes late, Daniel trailing behind him like an angry shadow. Both froze when they saw me at the head of the table. This is a private meeting, Father growled. I tapped the embossed nameplate in front of me. Aria Bennett, chairwoman. Not anymore. I watched with clinical detachment as the board members, all Father's cronies from Yale, scrambled to realign their loyalties. The speed with which they laughed at my jokes, nodded at my suggestions, and avoided my family's eyes would have been comical if it weren't so pathetic. Daniel finally snapped. You can't just waltz in here and— Fire you, I interrupted sweetly. Actually, I can. I slid an envelope across the table. Effective immediately. Security will escort you out. Mother chose that moment to burst in, her Chanel suit rumpled from what I guessed had been a frantic Uber ride across town. Olivia, darling. Ah, Victoria. I didn't stand. Your seat's over there. I pointed to the far end of the table, where the junior executives usually sat. The PowerPoint presentation was overkill, and I knew it. That's why I did it. Slide after slide flashed across the screen. Financial statements proving their mismanagement, competitor analysis showing how far they'd fallen, and finally the pièce de résistance, side-by-side photos. Left, me at 18, sobbing on a park bench after they disowned me. Right. My Hamptons estate, shot from my helicopter last weekend. You made one fatal mistake, I said as the room held its breath. You assumed money was power. I closed the laptop with a snap. Real power is making your enemies watch while you take everything they ever loved. I gave them 3 options. Walk away with nothing. No severance, no shares, just the clothes on their backs. work for me as junior executives, with salary caps and mandatory drug testing. Try to fight me in court, where I'd happily expose every shady deal they'd ever made. Father's hands shook as he signed the papers. Mother cried actual tears, the first real emotion I'd seen from her in decades. Daniel just stared at me with something almost resembling respect. I kept the Sinclair name on the building. Not out of sentimentality, but because nothing infuriated them more than watching me turn their beloved legacy into the most successful venture capital firm on the East Coast. Sometimes when I'm feeling nostalgic, I'll summon them to my office. Daniel to fetch my coffee, Mother to organize my charity galas, Father to consult on deals he'll never be part of. They tell people it's a family business. I let them keep the lie. After all, the best revenge isn't just winning, it's making sure they have front row seats to every second of your victory. Want more jaw-dropping revenge stories? Smash that like button. If you loved this, subscribe for more billionaire drama. Share with someone who deserves payback. Comment below. What would you have made them do?